Alright, so I'm working on this wheel horse. This is a 1961 701. One of the common problems here is that this piece, which bolts to the front of the toolbox, frequently gets broken off. Luckily this one was still with the tractor when I got it. So I got the weld cleaned off here where it was welded on. These are typically just welded in two spots right here. And so I got these areas ready for welding. And now I'm going to clamp that on there, and to locate it properly, I need to put all the pieces back on. Alright, so I have all the pieces bolted on, and all the bolts are loose, even that front section. So back here there's a lot of movement, and what I really want to do is line this piece up with the frame first. So I'm going to hold this piece down, because it does sort of sit on the frame here. Make sure it sits on there squarely. That'll be the first thing that gets tightened. So I want to hold down on this part so it's seated on the frame while I'm tightening this bolt down below it. While that's still loose, I want to make sure this is positioned sideways properly. Now I'm going to hold down on this while I tighten this bolt. So that positions this part proper with the frame. So next I'm going to tighten the toolbox down. Now I want to rotate it so that it's square. And I'm looking at the gap here and the gap here. Now I'm pushing the toolbox forward to try to reduce that gap a little bit. Alright, I see the camera died during that. Now I got the toolbox rotated so that the gap is the same on each side here. And then I tighten that down. The fenders are still loose on here, so I'm just looking at the toolbox, and that part's tightened down. So now I'm going to try to get this part positioned here. I don't really want to push that down to the bottom of its slots, so I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to measure from the top of the toolbox to get that bar parallel. Okay, this is going to be about 1/4 inch from the top of the toolbox edge right there. And I'm going to tighten up these bolts. Okay, so all these parts are tight. now I'm going to clamp those together, take it apart and weld it. That's where it'll be. Alright, everything's tight. That looks like that's where it's going to be. Well, that's what it looks like after I fixed it. See, I got a chip in the paint already. I always paint this stuff I repair, just so it don't rust. even if I'm not going to paint the rest of the tractor. Now let's see how it goes on there. Alright, I got all the bolts in. Everything's still loose. And I'm going to start with this front section because this sits down on the frame here. So I'm going to make sure that's down solid on the frame when I tighten those bolts first. Now I'm going to snug these big bolts just by hand so that that's held down against the transmission. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten these small bolts here. And before I get the toolbox tight, I want to make sure that your lift cable is positioned properly. The toolbox clamps the lift cable in position. Alright, the toolbox is bolted to that part. And then I'm just going to make sure this is square, which there's not much slop there. Not much clearance in the bolt holes there. Alright. Alright, all I gotta do is tighten up the fenders. That looks pretty good. Alright, I got this pretty nice seat at the auction a couple weeks ago. It was solid rust colored, but I got it cleaned up. It's got a few pits in it. I'm probably going to use it on this tractor. Got me a nice original bolt. Well, that looks pretty good. Alright, that's it.